it's a work written in the 14th century by unknown author. Nobody knows who wrote it. But it's a classic. It's the absolute classic. 14th or 13th century, I can't remember which one. But let us abandon everything within the scope of our thoughts and determine to love what is beyond comprehension. We touch and hold God by love alone. And that should sound familiar to what we've been talking about at the beginning in reference to the Moses model, is that you can never grasp the magnitude of God. You can never grasp who God is. And the only way to really understand God is to understand God through love. You can't understand God through cognitively, if you will. So, as Kierkegaard said, faith seeks understanding. So faith seeks understanding. So let us abandon everything within the scope of our thoughts and determine to love what is beyond comprehension. Remember, talking about the void, that the mystery of God, and we touch and hold God by love alone. So just keep that in your back pocket, keep that in your periphery, and we're going to hopefully flesh that out a little bit towards the end if we can get through all our slides today. So the video we're going to look at is from actually it's going to return you back to the video that we first started out with, of sound, mind, and body. It's about 15 minutes long, about the whole time. And like I said, it talks on a lot of different tiers. It's a bit dated. I mean, the video was written, made quite a while ago, but I mean, the content is so rich and it's so on point in which we're talking about in reference to the analogy of sound and using sound as an analogy for understanding, connecting with God and connecting with the voice of God, the sound of God, the vibration of God. So we're going to look at that, and there's going to be a number of different speakers in this presentation. All of them are have different expertise, but they all, hopefully you're going to see the theme in all of their conversations. So let's take a moment and look at this. And I know some of you want to ask for some of the videos that I use, they're just off YouTube. This one is, this is not off YouTube. This is off Amazon account. So you can get it if you have a Prime membership. You have like a subscription to Amazon. But this is in a certain collection. So you can't get the whole thing of this, just in case you're wondering. But the TED Talks, the things that we've done previously, you can.
Of who we think we are to a much more fundamental experience of being, particularly in the path of the heart in terms of accessing the felt experience of our own emotions and our own sensibilities. Music seems to have a way of getting right in, past the intellect, past the defenses, past the normal and socialized reluctance to feel deeply. For instance, the song that I sang for you earlier, Welcome to This World, Dear Child. We would tend to use that in a seminar. We would have participants perhaps cradle each other and start rocking. And they're being rocked, thinking to myself, boy, this is ridiculous. I'm too big for this. I mean, it sort of feels good, but come on. And all of a sudden they hear, welcome to this world, dear child. Welcome to the earth. All our love surrounds you at your birth. And it's the rocking, the touch, and the music. All of a sudden, it triggers that memory. And that child that lives with each of us, that sense of yearning to be able to have space in our adult lives that very often is locked behind being busy and being important. And the music so often seems to be the key. When I see your tiny hands and feet like precious dewdrops, soft and sweet, and I see your eyes that greet mine without fear. How every moment you're so eager to greet life anew. I feel my heart just sings with love for you. we all have patterns of behavior, patterns of thinking, patterns of feeling. And over time, these patterns, in a sense, crystallize, if you will, into a form. It's maybe called the personality ego. It's actually made up of energy that's fossilized or crystallized into structures. And my sense of music is, it's almost like an energetic massage, in the same way perhaps that a physical massage or a bodywork session might take parts of the body where there's some built-up tension or stored in stress, and by gently massaging it, it starts to open, the energy starts flowing, and be some kind of release of energy. And my sense of music is, it's really totally analogous to that the music is kind of a energetic massage, and the actual tonality of the music. I'm very conscious in the way I use my voice. I have the image sometimes I'm caressing people with it, very sort of masseuse would do, and I will slow down and speed up and get louder and softer, feeling intuitively the sense of where people are holding or reluctant, and kind of go into that space with them and use the music to massage, open some of those crystallizations, some of that holding, some of those held in emotions, and all of a sudden a release is triggered.
The technique that I'm using here is called toning. And basically what I'm doing is working with the vibratory qualities of my voice rather than the auditory qualities. I'm using my voice as a tool, if you will, to initiate vibration in both my body and the client's body. And this vibration then begins to move energy. I use it in combination with therapeutic touch, which is another technique for moving energy. And as the energy moves through the client's body, certain blockages are opened up or encountered. And perhaps if they're not opened, it then provides material that can be used in a therapeutic setting following the toning session. Also often subconscious material that's stored in the body is brought to the level of consciousness, and that also becomes available for therapeutic processing following this session. The client in this situation is in a purely receptive mode. They're not using their own voice at all, but simply receiving the vibration of my voice. We also would then continue to work with the client using his or her own voice as a vibratory medium within his or her own body. This initial session with toning opens the client up to the possibilities of the voice as a vibratory medium and begins to open the physical and energy bodies to that possibility of sonic vibration and the energetic changes that can be brought about through it.
Many of us have had the experience of perhaps having a teacher or someone say, "Shut up, you can't sing," and we're quiet. We no longer use our voices. But if we perceive of making sounds for ourselves, not as entertainment, but once again for entrainment, instead of getting up and thinking of, oh, I'm going to have to do something to entertain people, do it as, well, I am making these sounds for myself, for release, for resonance, to feel good. We'll be stimulating the endorphins, we'll be doing all sorts of very, very neat things in the brain, chanting, for example, or various types of toning, really does synchronize the hemispheres of the brain.
The way I tune in is through tone itself. The left brain in the conscious mind says, this is very boring, this has no meaning, this does not sound beautiful, and it inhibits it. But the rest of the brain in the body has a very deep participation that feels not only natural, but is almost immediately centering. And that is to close the eyes and to stay in a vowel sound that's very relaxed. It may be an ah for someone, it may be an oh for another, but to just stay in it for 5 minutes. Not being self-conscious about, does this sound beautiful? I've learned to experience sound from how it feels as vibration inside of me through toning rather than how it should sound to the outer world. And in literally 10 or 15 seconds, my presence is more available. I feel my voice drops a little. I slow down. And this is the process of toning. Searching on the inside of where the vibration is.
If someone after a while uses their ears to feel, then something very special begins to happen. But very few people use their ears. What begins to happen? You just feel pulsation. And then from pulsation, you can begin to sense rhythm. And then from rhythm, you can begin to see lights. And from lights, you can begin to distinguish forms. And most people focus on forms. Very few on the pulse or the rhythms. The beat that you tune into, the pulse that you tune into, is going to affect the way you think, the way your body's postured, the way that you have emotions, what you allow into your life, what you don't allow into your life. That's what I mean. If you just listen to one kind of music, then your life is limited to the particular vibrational spectrum that music can bring to you. The more diverse your listening abilities, the more diverse and more flexible you're going to be in every aspect of life. And if you listen to car horns, it's possible to transcend noise, which is a value judgment of an energetic event, and to open your ears and hear it as music. Everything is music.
I would think that that could have tremendous impact in the way we interact with one another. Instead of having these value judgments as that person's just speaking noise, or that person's acting noise,
Exactly.
that there could be more of a resonance there.
Yeah, if you can just be aware that there may be something more than what you're thinking or what you're judging, you have to have the ability to make whatever response is necessary. And to know that not through intellectual means, but through actually feeling the pulsation that's calling to you in the moment, to sense it and how it wants to move.
How can one tune into that pulsation?
You become very quiet inside. You stop, you can listen to tuning forks, you can do anything that slows you down. When you slow down, you begin actually to feel your own heartbeat. One of the old techniques was just tuning into the rhythm of your breath and how it's pulsating. It's a very good meditation technique. You just tune into yourself. And as you do that and slow down, you'll start feeling the pulsations. Now, if there's something between you and tuning in, you have to feel that. Some people are afraid to become quiet because there may be a sense of emotionality, sadness, fear, of aloneness. They have to get in touch with that. As they get in touch with it, it becomes no longer aloneness, but a feeling of aloneness. And the feeling of aloneness can turn to a vibratory experience of aloneness. It no longer is aloneness at that point. It becomes a pulsation. And it will begin to move through your body. So a living, energetic being is able to pulsate in different ways in different situations, to be flexible and spontaneous. That's what I describe as wellness. When there's a lack of flexibility, when there's a lack of spontaneity, and what happens is we say there's an energy block, or there's a dissipation of energy that will lead to, in the Western medical model, which is called dis-ease, or without ease, a lack of harmony. Because any situation that comes along, no matter what the content, no matter what the words, no matter what is said, you have to be able to resonate with the pulsations that are there, or with the elements that are manifested through those pulsations. Whatever I come in contact with in my life, whatever I'm led to, or whatever is led to me, is going to be pulsating. And my job is to learn how to resonate with whatever it is that comes to me. Through the resonance, through the merging of pulsations or the merging of energy fields, I come to a place inside of myself that is my soul. The word resonance means literally to return to sound, to come back to the sounds inside of herself. If there's something that's coming to me in my life, and if I can't resonate with it, I'm having to use energy to hold back from it. Therefore, I've divided myself. I'm no longer in unity. I've entered a world of duality. The moment I'm dancing with, resonating with anything that comes along, then I'm healed. The moment I stop dancing, then I need to be healed. When you're really dancing, with the elements, or you're really dancing with the sounds and the pulsations around you, then your environment just unfolds spontaneously.
We dance through life, you and I, as if defined by space and time. Our movements metered with intricate precision, and at times a delicate and graceful ease, giving evidence of some vast order that we yet scarcely know. Held aloft on unseen currents, riding the waves of life's pulsations, amidst a sea of shimmering beauty, music finds form in us through every emanation of our being. Her textures woven in fibers of muscle, flesh, and bone, we resonate together, giving voice to the one eternal tone. And through each heart, creation's pulse establishes a rhythm, unique and steadfast, dynamically seeking complementation. Brightness, depth, smooth and fervent, sharp and piercing, blending seamlessly, a chorus rejoicing. Within each one, the universal tone refines, love's voice rings true. We create this world, you and I, defining it in space and time, so that we may know its workings as a symphony of life, our joyous celebration of the silence through which creation may emerge.
That's a mouthful. What y'all think about that? Now, you saw the theme in reference to what we're talking about. There, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. In the beginning was the Word. God said, let there be. So all of creation started from a voice, started from a word, started from a sound. And every day we have a choice to be created by that sound, to be recreated by that sound, or to be reshaped by another vibration, to be reshaped by another sound. So I love the video because it talked about everything we do is giving off a vibration. Everything we do. I mean, we are, and everything we do. So we're making the decision whether we will be in line with the sound, with the voice of the Creator, with the vibration of the Creator, or will we choose to give off other vibrations? And I don't know if you caught this at the end, but remember, as the mystics say, the Christian mystics say, and really all mystics say, there's nothing but God. There is only God. So if in the beginning there was only God's voice, at the end, everything must return back to that voice somehow in some way. So everything must be reconciled. So what he was saying at the end, the guy at the end was basically saying is that even in things that you don't like, even in noise, you can find the vibration of God, because that noise ultimately has to come back to God. So that's more of a mystical way of everything must be reconciled. God can even use a false prophet to speak truth. Mm-hmm. So God can use anything, anywhere, any timing so it's really about us. Can we penetrate through all the junk and to even see the vibration of God, even in the vibrations that are, other than God? Because everything must come back to and be reconciled to the Creator. So does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, but we'll get to that, and we'll end on that once we get through the life of Jesus. So I want us to look at, let's review the Genesis model. We should know that very well by now. So what is the Genesis model? What is the most fundamental, transformative template for understanding the religion of Jesus and really for interpreting the scriptures? What does it start with? Voice. Very good. Y'all said that with confidence. Yes. Number 2. Creation. Number 3. Sabbath. Good. That returns you back to the void. Very good. Wow. I'm impressed. So there's the void. There's the mystery of God. There's the otherness of God that we can never capture. We can never create. We can never capture. We can never put in a box. And then from that comes creation. Out of that comes creation. And then after creation, after we've done all we can, after we've done what we can do, we said what we can do, we rest, we trust, we remain still, we practice Sabbath, and that Sabbath returns us back to that place where we can come out of life-giving words, life-giving actions, life-giving gestures. So everything in our life should have that pattern of void, creation. There's a time to talk, there's a time to do, there's a time to act, there's time to be still, be silent, and just rest and trust. And allow that to take you back to that creative energy of God. And out of that creative energy of God, then we talk, then we speak, then we act, then we do. And our actions are life-giving. They're good. They're restorative for the kingdom of God. So very good. So we're going to look at some different, a slightly different variation of that. Everything is the Genesis model. We're going to look at a slightly different manifestation of that, which we need to be mindful of in our everyday life, because it's easy for us to get caught up in this mode. So I want to look at it together. Let's see how far we can get with it together. Okay, so Caleb, I know, let us abandon everything within the scope of our thoughts and determine to love what is beyond comprehension. We touch and hold God by love alone. So we looked at, I want us to review, what's the difference between creation, recreation, and reformation. So what's the difference? What's the difference between that? What does recreation mean? If we're being recreated, what does that mean? What? You said what?
Changed by different vibrations other than God.
Recreation or reformation?
That's reformation.
Right, that's reformation, right. So recreation is what? Right, exactly. So recreation is being aligned to the voice, the sound, the word of the Creator. And remember, because we're being created. Look, God, all things are made in Christ. I am a new creature. The old things have passed away. So I am being recreated because I have chosen to. I've allowed myself to be aligned with the vibration of the Creator, with the sound, with the word of the Creator. So I'm recreated. I'm being recreated. I rest, I trust, and I go back into that void. Reformation is what? Now, Tiffany, you're on.
Being changed by different vibration other than God.
Exactly. So reformation is being changed by other vibrations. So I have the choice, either I'm going to be bent out of shape by your sound, by your voice, or I'm going to be recreated by God's voice, by God's sound, by God's vibration. And that's the only choice. Everything in Scripture is that fundamental choice between being recreated by the voice or to be bent out of shape by another voice. And we see that from the very beginning. Adam and Eve were created, and then the serpent reshaped and reformed Adam and Eve because they chose to align themselves with a different voice. And anytime we align ourselves with another voice, with different vibration, different sound, we are reshaped, we are reformed, and we are moving away from what our Creator had in mind. So how do we become more attuned to the sound of God? How do we become attuned to the sound, to the voice, to the vibration of God?
Taking the time to be still.
Exactly, Sabbath. Taking the time to be still, that trust, that surrender, which leads us back into the mystery of God, where we can act from. So it's a wonderful thing to practice Sabbath in different ways we've been talking about, and to really know that you're speaking from a place of God's presence. You're acting from a place of God's presence. Your schedule, your rhythm, it's a great place to be when you have time to be still and trust and rest. And then that's the foundation for what you do. And when that's the foundation, your actions will always be good. They will always be good. May not be in the sense that you think they are, but they will always be good and life-giving. So let's look at this first model. Let's look at the model we're going to talk about today, which is something that we need to be aware of when we're talking about attuning to or disaligning or attuning to the rhythm, to the sound of God. So turn to Ruth chapter 1. So you all got this. This is you got this. We should just breeze through this. Okay. Ruth chapter 1, we'll start with verse 19. So let me just give you a summary while we're do we need to go review the books in the Bible again? Y'all not going too long. So in the beginning of Ruth, remember Ruth is returning. She's returning back to her home country from Moab, and she has lost all of her children, all of her sons, and her daughter-in-laws are, basically having a conversation of whether they want to stay with her or not. And Naomi says, "Listen, I'm old. You can still have a family and start all over again. But go back to your home country, go back to your gods, go back to your culture. But I need to to go to my country." And Ruth makes a decision that she's not going to leave Naomi, that she's going to stay with Naomi, and they're going to journey into Israel together. And that's when we pick up. That's how Ruth chapter 1 opens up. So you got it now?
Yeah.
Okay, 19. Now the two of them, which is Ruth and Naomi, the two of them went until they came to Bethlehem. And it happened when they had come to Bethlehem that all the city was excited because of them. And the woman said, "Is this Naomi?" Verse 20. But she said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. And I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me?" And so Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess returned, her daughter-in-law with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Okay, so let's look at. I want to start with some questions. Number one, why was Naomi bitter?
Because she lost her husband and her son.
She lost her husband, lost her son, lost her possessions, family, everything. She basically lost everything. Okay? Okay, good. Why did she want to be called Mara?
Because she felt like God was angry with her, that she was feeling bitter about certain things. That God had turned his back on her, so she, obviously the name Naomi didn't fit her anymore. She thought,
Yes, but more. But I'm looking for something deeper. Yes, that's right. She was bitter. Naomi didn't. Now you said Naomi. The name Naomi didn't fit her anymore. Okay.
it was pleasant.
Okay. Naomi means pleasant. Name didn't fit her anymore. Yes. Go deeper. Go deeper. It's in reference to she believed that the name wouldn't fit her anymore.
She said she was empty.
She said she was empty. Mara means bitter. Okay. Naomi means pleasant. Mara means bitter. Okay. What else? What else?
She was returning home.
That vibration, the vibration that she was in tune to was different. And so,
Naomi, the vibration Naomi was tuned to was different? Okay. Okay. Ada, what you say?
No, I just said Myra means dead, so maybe she felt that she was dead inside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. Let's, now, what gives Naomi the right to rename herself?
she was listening
That's the
to
question. She was listening to the vibration of the Solomon one? I'm asking you. No, remember, everything goes back through Genesis. What gives Naomi the right to rename herself? That's the only question I want you to answer right now. What gives her the right?
She didn't have the right.
She didn't have the right.
She thought she had.
She thought she had the right.
Yeah.
Okay, Sister Carl.
Look at the footnote on my
Uh-huh.
Naomi's outlook on life, although prouder than God's sovereignty was not hopeful. Thus she asked to be renamed, which means bitter. Her experience was not unlike Job, but her perspective resembled that of Job's life. In reality, Naomi had a full harvest prospect, We bless Boaz and the hope of God, we do bless it.
Yeah, yeah. So, she asked for it. No, I'm going to ask, who has the power to name? Now, this is very good. If we go back to Genesis, God has the power to name, and God grants that power when God so chooses. And He grants that power in a limited aspect to Adam, right? Name these creations, okay, right? So, because remember, only God is the giver of breath, and only God has the power to name. Because when you name something, you claim something. When you name it, you're saying, I have the authority to identify what it is, what it truly is in its nature, in its essence. So this is very important. So Naomi is let's go back to the chart, to the model. So Naomi is living her life out of that void. She is acting. She's trying to do the best she can, and her husband dies. Her sons died. She loses her possessions. Her whole plans go to hell in a handbasket. Everything goes wrong. And in the process of her living out and acting and doing and out of God's presence, out of God's please, Naomi stops and begins to label what God is doing in her life as bitter when she did not have the power or the authority to do that. See, we have to understand that when you are living, let's go back to Genesis. When you are living out of the presence of God, when you are living out of that void, everything is good, even if you don't see how it's good in that moment. Everything is good. Everything is told. Everything is for God's good. That's why we say, God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. Because it truly is. Your limited perspective, you don't have the power, you don't have the authority to identify anything and name anything as anything other than what God has called it. So if you are living out of that void and you are the midst of activity, who are you to stop and to say this is bad? Or this is bitter, or this is destructive, or whatever like that. Who are you to name something? So what Naomi does, let's go back to model. Okay, so we have void. So she's doing her best to live in this. And remember, when God creates, God always creates. Everything at the end of finished creation, when God is finished, it's always told. It's always good. So Naomi is in this process, and in the middle of God doing what God does, Naomi says, you know what? It's bitter. In the middle of this, she names it, and then she claims it. So let's go a little further. Okay, but does that make sense? So the power to name is a divine attribute, and when we have to understand, when you name something, you're saying, I have the power. And if it's coming from God, if it's coming from a God-given place, if it's coming from the void, then that power can be fine, that authority can be fine. But when you name something, when you say something is, you're saying this is the essence of it. I have the power, I have the insight to determine the past, the future, the present, and the essence of what this thing really is. And this power is so important because Naomi struggles. And she surrenders, but does not wait for God to name the situation. She does not. She struggles, and there's even some surrender in what she's doing, but she does not wait for God to name the situation. She struggles, surrenders, but then identifies and classifies herself and her situation, which she has no power to do. She has no power to do this, and we see throughout this, all throughout the scriptures. We always see that there's this tendency on humanity to want to name God. What did Moses say? Moses said, "Well, what's your name?" We're going to look at Jacob and Jacob's struggling with the angel, and the thing that Jacob asks the angel is, "Well, who are you? What is your name?" Because when you have the power to name something, when you have the power, it was believed in biblical times that you now knew what that what that person's essence was. You knew what that person's essence was. So she's doing something, she's extending authority that she doesn't have authority to do. She's naming the situation. So let's look at this. So Boaz took Ruth. Let's look at this. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. And when he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, she bore a son. Then the woman said to Naomi, listen to this, this is the end of Ruth. Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a close relative. May his name be famous in Israel. 15, and may he be to you a restorer of life, good, a nourisher of your old age, for your daughter-in-law, listen to this, who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has bore him. She lost all her sons at the beginning. And what the relative was saying was, look at God. God has put you in a better position than you were when you entered into this journey. See, you were so bitter, you were so quick to label the situation, you were so quick to say that what the situation was, but what you did not have authority to do. And look how God turned the whole thing around and he put you in a better position than if you had 7 sons. This is very for your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has bore them. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. Also the neighbor women gave him a name. Once again, the name. So that's the third place the name is in there. Saying, there is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. So we see that God, in the end, God restores. God, the activity of God always returns to that is good. So what am I trying to say is, in the midst of acting, if you are really in a posture of confession, of really practicing this rhythm that we're talking about, and life is not going the way you want it, you have no authority to determine that it is bad or that it is better. You don't have the authority to say that. You don't have the authority to say that. God returns everything to Tov. Everything that comes from the void, everything that comes from God will ultimately be restored back to a state of goodness. And you are hindering yourself. You are short selling yourself, and you are delaying your blessing by stopping in the middle of the process and determining based on your limited insight and your limited perspective and your limited knowledge what the situation actually is. You don't have the authority to do that. Are you still with me?
Yes.
You don't have the authority to name that. And we see this throughout the scriptures of humanity trying to assess the situation for God and trying to get ahead of God and tell God how it's going to turn out. So when you name something, think about this. A name in and of itself is a vibration. Now think about what Naomi did in chapter 1. So if a name is a vibration, Naomi claims Mara vibrations. She claims Mara vibrations and asks others to send her bitter vibrations. Because every time you say the word Mara, it means bitter. So you're asking people to call you that. You're literally asking people to send you bitter vibrations. You're asking for that. So because you've determined that her life is bitter, not only have you claimed the bitter vibrations, the Mara vibrations, but you have also invited those vibrations into your life because you have assumed authority for stuff that you have no authority to assume. You still with me?
Yeah.
The battle to name you is the battle to claim you. The battle to name you is the battle to claim you. You have to be very clear. When you go out from the course of the day, there's only one person that can name you, and that's the voice of the Creator. We get into trouble when you name yourself. Oh, I just can't do it. Oh, I'm just stupid. Or I'm just mad. Or I'm just upset. What you're doing is you're naming yourself. You're naming yourself, and you're claiming yourself, which you have no authority to do. So when the power to name is the power to claim. So we have to be very careful, going back to the video, of literally using our words as an instrument. Because when we speak, we not only impact other people with our words, but we also impact ourselves by what we say to ourselves, by what we say over and over again. We're shaping, we're reforming ourselves. And it's very important to be careful about naming situations before they have run their course, because if we are living out of God's presence, God will restore everything back to good. So Naomi claims Mara vibrations, asks others to send her. And that's very interesting. That's very interesting too, and I think that would be more reflectional. And as some of you know, I work with people individually, do meditation sessions with them, and I am absolutely amazed about how often people want to be in pain. They want to be in pain. They want to be unhappy. They want to be sad. And I'm not telling you theory. I'm telling you actual facts. So that when I work with people with pain, believe it. You have heard me say this before. I've went to people in the hospital. I work with people in individual sessions, and I'm amazed of how many people. When I say, what if I told you that I say, what's your pain level from on a scale of 1 to 10? They say 8. I said, what if I tell you I can help you reduce your pain level? 50% of them say, no, I'm okay. 50% of them, because at first I would just say I would just try to help them, but I started to learn that everyone doesn't want to feel better. There's something called secondary gains. Some people have there are whatever reasons, subconscious, whatever like that. There are reasons, and all of us have them. We have reasons that for why we want to stay hurt, sick, disabled, or mad, bitter, whatever like that. There are certain benefits that we all get from doing that in whatever way.
Do you think they rename themselves like Naomi did?
Yeah, people do it all the time.
Yeah.
People do, I'm just tired, I'm just sick, it ain't going to change. But what do you say? You're claiming your situation.
Yeah, that's true. They do.
You're naming your situation. You're naming. So you're literally claiming that Mara vibration. But then not only that is that when someone tries to tell you that the situation can be different or better, you say, no, that's not true. Because I'm only receiving vibrations that are bitter. That's the only thing I'm accepting right now. I'm only accepting, call me Mara. I'm only accepting, that's the only thing I'm open to. So when you're only open to, what did the guy say? When you tune in to a certain beat, to a certain sound, that becomes your frequency, and that's the only thing that you can hear. And we do this all the time. I see it every single day. Inviting Mara, because we already said we were mad, we already said we were angry, and we don't want to hear or feel any other vibration other than the vibration that we already claimed. And this will keep people in ditches and ruts for decades.
Well, Graham, do you think that when people claim the pain and stuff and don't want to get rid of pain, they feel like they may not get as much sympathy if they're painless as they would, or might not get as much attention?
That's part of it. That's part of it with the pain. Yeah, because people get attention from being sick and being. So that is a part of it.
So that's like others. They not asking others to send their Mara vibrations, but they kind of joining the bandwagon by feeding into that person's bitterness or pain.
And they don't know it, right?
Right.
They don't know it. Yeah. And then we can go in the other extreme, because I've seen people, in the name of Jesus, I claim it. It's gone. Well, it might not be gone.
Right.
Jesus didn't give you the authority to do that either. So that might not be the way to go either. There might be a process. You might have to be in pain for a little bit first.
Right.
So don't go to the other extreme, just claiming everything. Naming everything good, it might not be good yet.
Right.
So you have to come from a place of humility. With all of these things, but in the sense of only God has the power to name something. Only God has the power to claim something. So I want us to do some introspection about and I know I'm guilty of this just like anybody else. Of the things that we say to ourselves over and over again. That is really a claiming, a naming process. And we should only be naming things based on scriptures, based on, you know, where God is leading us. We should really be coming up from that void and only speaking to ourselves out of that void. We should only be speaking out of that void, because then our language becomes clean, it becomes life-giving, it becomes powerful, and you know, and we don't realize how much we actively or maybe even subconsciously, unintentionally invite bad vibrations into our lives. We invite bitterness and anger and all of that toxic stuff. We invite it into our lives because we already decided that it was so. You still with me?
Yeah.
So let's look at so if you can get through this, these next two are gonna be easy. That was the most challenging one. So Genesis 32, let's turn to that one. I'll give you an opportunity to get to the book of Genesis. We got it? Genesis 32. Now, we see this throughout scriptures. Let me just go. I just want to go. Then Jacob was left alone, 24, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And now he saw that when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint, and he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." 27. So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and men and have prevailed." And then Jacob asked, saying, "Tell me your name, I pray." And he said, "Why is it that you ask about my name?" And he blessed him there. And so Jacob called the name Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. So once again, we see this pattern of the struggle, and that's the pattern we'll lift up. The struggling with God, struggling, really just struggling, period, but struggling, and then the representative of God, the angel of God. This is, a lot of people debate this passage a lot, on the exact significance, but the angel of God, the representative of God, wrestling with Jacob, struggling with Jacob, and then renaming, that's what you focus on. Once Jacob surrenders, renaming Jacob in the course or in the context of the struggle. So the struggle with the vibration, and that's what I want you to. That's what I think I want you to really lift up with the Ruth passage, is that sometimes even when you're doing all the right things, and even when you're grounded and when you're centered, things are still going to seem like they're going to be periods where they're not going to be working right, and they're not going to be coming together, and it doesn't seem like you're making any progress. And that is so tempting in those moments to want to stop and just try to figure out what the situation is. But that's the wrong time to stop and try to claim or name the situation. As a result of struggling, the activity, that 6 days of creation, that involves some struggle. That's going to involve some periods of struggle, some seasons of struggle. But as a result of that process, as a result of struggling with the vibration renames Jacob and calls him Israel. So that new birth, that new creation comes about. Now Jacob is literally called a different name, a different sound, a different vibration. He is literally recreated. This is what we're talking about. He's being recreated as a result of that struggle. And interesting enough, Israel tries to understand the vibration of what is your name. Even in the midst of that struggle, he's trying to claim it and trying to name it. And that goes back to what we've always talked about. we have to, in our Christian walk, we have to be comfortable with the mystery of God. There are some things that we're not going to know. And stopping in the midst of the journey to try to figure out everything or to label everything or identify everything will only slow us up. Will only slow us up. So there's always this tendency in Scripture to try to understand and try to capture what's happening instead of just to allow yourself to be recreated by the experience. And the Moses model is present because Moses said, what shall I call you? So the vibration renames, recreates those who struggle and surrender. And just to be comfortable with, even when you're coming from and in the rhythm of God, it's going to be a struggle. There's going to be times where it doesn't seem like it's working for your good or for your favor. But it's important to just stay focused, stay grounded, and God always, everything that comes from God must return back to God. It must. It's the law of the universe. It's the law of creation. It must return back to God. And the Sabbath is, we practice Sabbath when we have faith. You know what? I've done all I can. It still doesn't look good. It still looks like it's going to turn out. It doesn't look like it's all going to work out, but I've done all I can, and I'm going to trust, I'm going to rest, I'm going to be still, I'm going to be silent. Why? Because I know that the law of creation, the law of the universe is everything that comes from God must go back to God. It must. It simply must. It's just no other way. It's no other place for it to go. So either you can be apprehensive about it and worry about it and stress about it, or you can just enjoy the ride back to the Lord. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. And you can invite all these negative vibrations on the way back to the Lord.
That's a really good question.
Yeah,
So what would you say about Lucifer and his angels? You said everything has to be reconciled back to God. Well, I can't see the devil repenting and returning to God. I mean, we know that he's going to be destroyed. So is that the same thing?
You said something. I can't see. You're right, you can't see. Maybe it's not meant for you to see. That's the whole point. I can't see. That's right. That's fine.
The Bible doesn't say that he ever repents. It says that the devil and his angels will be destroyed.
That's fine. That's fine.
So, but then if that's the case, then they're not returning to God, right?